Everyone, welcome to another Something Bad Thursday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address my thoughts in regards to echo chambers, in particular why I think they're not necessarily that good of a thing, and why I sort of feel like they lead to kind of a sort of us against them mentality. In other words, you get yourself involved into a group, and once somebody else comes up with a different viewpoint, you sort of do everything to sort of silence that person, and in doing so, you're not open to hearing what other people have to say. Um, and I think a lot of this can be attributed to the echo chamber sort of mentality. I think eventually what happens, at least as far as my understanding is concerned, I think echo chambers end up resulting in sort of ideologies, um, and sort of more of along the lines of really stringent ideologies. Now, again, I'm not saying that having opinions or surrounding yourself with people who have similar opinions is necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's sort of healthy that we kind of gravitate more towards people who kind of agree with us. But I think it's important to leave things open to hearing what other people have to say, only because it allows you to further understand um, people's way of thinking, even if it's not necessarily right, and even if you don't even agree with it. And that's why I think personally it's really good that people have different viewpoints. I don't think that everybody should really think the same. I don't think that we should try to, again, create a one mentality. I think that sort of stifles uh, our sense of self, and at the same time too, I think ideologies, especially if you get into sort of an echo chamber that has similar viewpoints to you, is that you come very strident in what you personally believe, because you individually are taking in what other people are saying and you're sort of applying it to yourself. And in doing so, you don't cave in you don't try to listen to what other people have to say. Um, I think so that's why I think it's important that I don't think we try to create a echo chamber that is really stringent, or at least these very condensed areas of thinking, because in doing so, I think it really limits our potential as human beings to sort of move beyond that echo chamber. Um, and in doing so, you can't really kind of. It's ironic because on the one hand, echo chambers, when eventually you sort of get wrapped into one, you sort of, on the one hand, you sort of feel like you gain a sense of self, like, oh, this person totally understands my viewpoint and I get it 100% and I'm totally behind. And then you sort of adopt that as your own sort of way of thinking. So in a way, it kind of brings out a sense of connection between people, but at the same time, it makes people more strident and more, again, confrontational, and not willing to kind of open yourself up. Um, so uh, I think this kind of concept of an echo chamber can be within a variety of different contexts and places. The internet, I think, is a perfect example of places where people can develop sort of these echo chambers, and they sort of read into things, and they kind of absorb it and take it as the way in which the world sort of operates. And I think that's sort of misleading, because I think although part of truth is within the internet, I don't think we should rely on it as much as of a worldview as instead of just, going outside and actually experiencing the world for what it is, and not getting wound up in this way of thinking. And a lot of that is, I think, perpetrated through the internet, and hence you get these kinds of echo chambers where people just kind of sit there and take in all of this information and don't kind of let go and unwind the hardline thinking. Um, and I think, it's just one of those things where it can obviously apply in other places as well. Obviously, like within school, you get involved with maybe certain organizations, um, within a classroom setting, within a family environment too. So there is a lot of tendency for things to kind of, once somebody comes in and has sort of a kind of more black sheep mentality of the echo chamber, it's where you kind of get the sort of chaos ensuing. And I think this is definitely the wrong way to approach it, unfortunately. But what happens again with a lot of these echo chambers is that they close themselves off and say, no, you're wrong, and oh, I hate you, and blah blah blah, and it just causes a lot of distress, and you know div- dividing people based on like an opinion, I think is just it's a very I think that's just the wrong way to approach things. I mean, I personally surround myself with people who have a variety of different views. Again, and I can find some commonality with a lot of what people say. But at the end of the day, I form my own point of view. I don't succumb to a particular way of thinking and go inside the echo chamber, because the echo chamber is a chamber. And once you're in the chamber, it's really hard to get out. It's really hard to kind of get out of the ways of thinking in a certain way. And, it's really hard to really try to be open with other people. And I think I think it's important to have convictions. People are, it's not that I'm saying that you have to bow down to what everybody else says, but what I am saying is that I think there is a tendency to uh, have a collective sort of mentality and sort of embrace that based upon sort of an individual understanding of things, and in doing so succumb to the chamber, as opposed to just kind of getting out of it and just realizing, look, even if there are people who have opposing views to me, I'm not going to try to perpetrate uh, my viewpoint as the official right, and anything that else that is not within my understanding of things ends up, falling by the wayside. I think there should be a certain level of, not embracing this echo chamber, as I like to call it. And I think it really can work in, again, it's also in a variety of different contexts, like whether it be political or religious. There's a lot of things that really can grab people and really bring them down into this chamber. And I think it's not necessarily a good thing. Um, and I'd like to think that I can think on my own and figure out my own ways. And even though I may or may not share similar viewpoints to other people, I still try to embrace, again, a certain level of reasoning. And at the same time, understand that, there's probably people that are within the echo chamber that you're not going to be able to get out of the echo chamber. You know, and it's unfortunate that people get suckered into this within the first place. And I don't think there's a point in fighting over these silly things. Like, people fight over the silliest nonsense. Even when it comes to like movies, like people are so stringent on even a movie that you like or dislike. People are very divided, I think, more so than I think than than maybe we have at least sort of been, because again, the internet sort of takes it to a whole nother level of division. But again, it's not to say that there hasn't obviously been a lot of more division in the past, and that we haven't kind of grown out of the echo chambers. I think there is a certain sense that we have gotten out of it, but at the same time, I think it leaves for more and more different kinds of echo chambers to kind of develop. Um, and I think it's just important to, think for yourself. That's what I really encourage people to do. I don't follow somebody just because there's not 100%, you know, there are certain things about uh, the way in which people think where I can understand, and there are other times where I just go, that's just a little bit too crazy for my taste. But at the same time, I let them believe what they ultimately want to believe, because you can't really control what people think. You have to let them be willing to step out of the echo chamber. Um, and I can understand people wanting to try to find a group, trying to find commonalities, and wanting to kind of embrace, different things. Um, but at the same time, you have to realize, at least I think people should realize that, it's important to not succumb to uh, trying to surround people all the time that, again, I think hold again I just don't think I think it allows people not to be challenged by their viewpoints if they're constantly surrounding themselves with people that agree with them 100%. And who's to say you can't get along with someone who doesn't agree with you? I mean, I think it's important that we have differences. I think it's important that we don't go, uh-huh, yeah, oh yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, man, 100%. I'm not going to challenge you in any way or try to debate you, or, I'm just going to follow you 100% because you are 100% right, and you know everything, and you are the next coming of, whoever. And, I just think that that kind of creates, again, the sort of wrapped up, it sort of, again, is the starting points to kind of ideologies being formed. And again, it's not necessarily that ideology is a bad thing. It's just as if you could succumb to an ideology completely. um, I think that that leaves things, somewhat, or not open to again, not hearing out people who maybe have something, you know different than you. Or And I think there's too a certain amount of, I guess, arrogance that comes to people who don't embrace a person's viewpoint 100%, and almost like they want to talk down to the person, they want to belittle the person, and I think that's wrong. I mean, I don't think you should, just because somebody disagrees with you, or they have a different understanding of the world, it doesn't mean that you can't get something out of it, even if you, again, don't fully embrace what they're saying, or if what they're saying just doesn't ring true. You can still try to have some level of persuasion. But I think at the end of the day, I just don't like wasting my time with people fighting over whatever. I just think that it's entertaining to watch. I'm a spectator. That's what I love, though, too, about these echo chambers, is that they create sort of a sense of entertainment for people who are kind of not in the echo chambers. Like me personally, I just like to sit back and just go, okay, you're gonna argue with this person over this and this thing. Oh, okay, all right, yeah, okay. Try to see where that goes. You're probably not gonna get anywhere. um and there's no sense in trying to constantly belittle a certain point, especially when the point has already been significantly made as to what you already believe in. It's really just, I think, a little bit ridiculous. Like, it's gone way too overboard, I think, honestly, in my opinion. I think people, um, especially in and around, especially within my generation, have sort of created these very deep, 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 deep echo chambers. And I think, it just belittles any rationale. And it sort of forgoes people's responsibility in a way, I think, because you're not taking responsibility for, you know, thinking outside of what everybody within the echo chamber is telling you. Um, and again, I just think that if we leave things open, if we think more for ourselves, but at the same time be open to hearing what anybody else has to say. And again, who's to say that that person isn't a good person just because they don't agree with you? I mean, who's to say that that person, is any less than you just because they have a viewpoint that is not the same as you. I mean, that's what I strive for too. I mean, even if people don't agree with what I have to say, I still make an effort to try to be at least civilist as I possibly can. And I don't try to embrace the mentality of thinking just because there's a lot of people who like one thing, therefore I must like it as well, or I must embrace this or that. So I think that's really what's important, and what I think we should kind of at least strive for with ourselves is to think beyond this echo chamber. Um, and I think we'll be all the better for it. I mean, I think rational um, and civil conversation is really what's going to get the human species sort of, I think, to the next level. And unfortunately, we're sort of belittled by all these arguments over random stuff, that we don't kind of realize or try to think outside of our own way of thinking. And again, it's not to say that you need to break out of what you believe in and switch what you believe in, but at the same time, it's important to, I think, not try to succumb to, again, going into some kind of way of thinking that it really puts yourself on. It really, it puts it in the front of your brain, so to speak. Instead of just thinking about the enjoyable things that exist in this life. I mean, I just don't understand why, we have to have a conflict over something when you look at just how amazing this world is. Even if, again, it's obviously not perfect, but just seeing how amazing it is that we can breathe and that you can talk and that you can have a voice, and the fact that you can go out and do things. I mean, those things are really I think should be more on people's minds, and I think sort of embracing these kinds of really deep echo chambers are really what kind of not allow people to, again, kind of get out and really see the world for what it is, because the world is more than just the internet, and it's more than just trying to have an argument with somebody. I mean, you're not gonna persuade someone, but at the end of the day, you can maybe have some commonality on some other things, and you can kind of embrace the person more so for their, again, character. And I think a lot of things really in the way in which people relate to one another is really based off of the character that they have, more so than what they kind of really believe in or what they embrace as fact and truth. Because the truth is always changing. I mean, science is always building up upon itself, and there's obviously things that aren't maybe going to be revealed to us, that whether or not this may be true, this may not be true. I mean, there's just certain things in life that you sort of can't really control, and you can't really change, because at the end of the day, it's sort of important to just kind of just live for yourself, and live for those who truly do have a care for you and don't care whether or not you think a certain way, or don't bother with talking about these really these things that you really can't ultimately change. I mean, it's just I just don't get why we can't just kind of get out of it. But again, it's I think a part of it is sort of human nature, and obviously, again, I'm not against certain. If people want to group however they want, and they want to build out these echo chambers and go as deep as they possibly can, then by all means go ahead. But I'm not going to be part of it. I'm not going to embrace the echo chamber, because I like to think things through a much broader viewpoint. And when you do, I think, you just open your mind up to so many different things, and I think a lot of it is really going out in the world and, not really succumbing to all the stuff that's on the internet. I think that's really it. And I think that's how a lot of these echo chambers go down. It's just like, internet tells truth, instead of just having your own experiences in life. But that's just my honest thoughts. I would be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say or what they have as far as regards to this topic. Yeah, I think that's really ultimately my thoughts. But I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye. And apologize this video had to be uploaded late. I was unfortunately busy. I think I made a note of it on Wednesday's video, but in case I didn't, apologize. But until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.